Welcome back to the show, Disruptors. I'm your host, Aaron, and this is Point of Impact, the show where I bring you the tactics, techniques, and procedures, the TTPs of incredible leaders, so you can have actionable, practical insights from people who are doing incredible work in this world. Also, bringing you the mindset shifts, the inspiration and motivation so that you could take these insights and put them into action today. My guest today is chock full of inspiration. In fact, if you are feeling in a rut, life getting you down, you feel like pain and suffering is getting a little bit too much for you to handle. Believe me, we all go through that. From one extent or another, we all have to deal with hardship, whether it's loss of a loved one, mental, physical, learning disabilities, addiction, disorders. The list goes on and on. Financial matters, relationship difficulties. I'm telling you, the list is infinite, and we all have to deal with it. My guest is showing others that what's within you is stronger than what's in your way. Erik Weihenmayer is a 3-time author, public speaker, co-founder of No Barriers, a nonprofit that helps others overcome their obstacles, mental, physical, emotional, otherwise. And he's also the very first blind person to climb Mount Everest, the tallest peak in the world. I met Erik 10 years ago when he took a team of wounded veterans up a mountain in the Peruvian Andes, me included. At that moment, meeting him and doing something that wasn't completely unthinkable to me at the time, as I was dealing with my own difficulties, having just been injured and dealing with the fact that I'd be blind for the rest of my life. Meeting Erik and doing that incredible act was a pivot point in my life. It was it showed me, even after the injury, that what was inside me was stronger than what was in my life. So, Erik lives by the motto, and he's sharing and teaching others that they break through barriers. They don't break them. Erik, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you. I'm so glad you agreed to come to the show because, for one, this is 10 years, I think, since we first met.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think we met on that expedition that you were on in No Barriers when we went to Peru and climbed a mountain together. I think it was called Mariposa. Yeah. I think it was over 18,000 feet and a really cool snow climb and up a little ridge at the top, and all stood on the summit together. We had a little bit of sketch weather, if I remember, so we were worried about whether we should turn back or not. I'm glad we made it to the top, and I think you held an American flag, and I think we also held up the No Barriers flag, and then we had to trudge all the way back down. The snow had softened up, and
oh my God.
Yeah, you were just plunging down to like past our thighs, and then a long ass walk back to the refugio.
Getting off that summit was almost as hard as getting up it, because we were stepping like through this hard packed glacier snow. And eventually we started sliding on our stomachs and bellies to get off of that snow and down into the rocks.
Yeah, because when you start out in the morning, in the late evening, everything's frozen, so you're walking on the surface, and then you get to the summit and you're coming down in the heat of the day, and the snow is just really soft now. So now you're punching through sometimes, like up to your waist. So I totally remember that being kind of a slog.
That's what happens when you take
You did great though,
and it takes you too long to get to the top. But
Yeah.
I remember thinking, somebody should be watching where we're going.
You had some good friends that you had met on that trip, though, and you had some fantastic folks that were guiding you and guiding me. So
really do like that. I saw that meeting you, going on that expedition as a pivot point in my own life, and that's what made our visit together at the summit this year so special. And since then I've gone on tons of other adventures, got into a lot of other things. I've stolen some of your speaking material for my own.
Yeah, steal away. It's borrowed. It's borrowed material. I've done my fair share of borrowing too. Don't worry.
Now, I hope Ed, my lab, never sees any of my recording speaking events.
But you mentioned the summit. So yeah, your community here may want to know that, you came out to the No Barrier Summit for a reunion this last summer, and you got this award. It was the inaugural Don't Quit Award. It was named in the spirit of my dad, who passed a year and a half ago. And he was a Marine aviator, and he loved the work at No Barriers. He loved the stuff that the veteran community we built and so forth. And he would have been on cloud nine to see you get that award and that powerful acceptance speech that you made in front of our No Barriers community. I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, and people were they said that was the highlight of the entire summit. So
I was told I'd have 6 seconds. Oh, maybe it was 3 minutes. I don't know. Whatever it was, I overstayed my
no, you did.
Time a lot.
You look great.
But speaking of your dad, one thing I did mention, and I couldn't leave the stage without saying so, is that it was also in that summit 10 years ago when I met your dad. And then I still had my hearing and lost my eyesight. He made an impression on me in just a few short words. And frankly, I can't even remember what the words were. But being in, having experience in the sales world, and I tell people, you can hear a smile through the phone. And what I heard in your dad's voice there at the summit when he was meeting me and he was just chatting with others in the crowd, I heard pride in his voice. And it was pride for what his son has accomplished. And this was a decade ago. And you've done so much since then. I'd like to get into that.
My dad loved meeting you. And you're right. I think in a voice, you can tell somebody makes an impression. My dad did that a lot. And, he had joy in his voice. He was a huge achiever in his day, but then, as he got older and he wasn't able to be as physical, he really poured that energy and joy and love onto other people and was like my greatest cheerleader in my life. And he was the biggest cheerleader for No Barriers as well. So when he passed, I had people all around the world just saying the same thing that you just said, that he made that impression. And, he was part of the reason why I started being able to climb professionally. I was a teacher, Aaron, for 6 years, and I thought I was going to teach forever. I loved it, but then I started getting the attention of some outdoor companies, and I was climbing mountains in the summer. I'd climbed Denali, I'd climbed El Capitan, and I thought maybe I could make a life as a mountain climber. And what a preposterous idea that would be. And my dad said, no, it's not preposterous. He goes, I'll help you out. I know you don't have much business experience because you were an English and communications major in college, and you're an English teacher. But he said, I'm leaving my job. I'm kind of retiring, and I can help you and become your manager. And my dad and I got to talk for 20-something years after that first idea. It wasn't an idea that many venture capitalists would have invested in, but my dad was so gung-ho from the very beginning, and was a part of a lot of my climbs. Like, he lay on his back when I climbed El Capitan, and he watched me creep up the face in his little telescope. And when I summited Denali, he flew over the summit in a Twin Otter plane, watching us take our last steps. And on Everest, he hiked to base camp to see me off with a really bad hip that was like degrading at that time. So yeah, my dad was always on the sidelines there, just being a great cheerleader. So I had a good mentor. I was very, very, very lucky.
Well, speaking of that Denali summit, I remember there was something kind of funny about, you waving to everybody flying on that plane that day.
Yeah, that's my blind joke that I use when I'm speaking a lot of times. I got to the summit, the plane with my family, they're flying above us, they're circling above us in this plane, and we're all waving our ski poles and cheering at the plane. And I asked Jeff Evans, who you've met over the years, I said, hey, do you think they'll know that I made it, to the summit? Because we all have these red suits on and we look identical to each other. And he goes, yeah, they're going to know you're the only one waving your ski pole in the wrong direction. So good to have friends. I'm sure you got friends that bust your balls in a kind way as well.
Yeah, I know Jeff, and this huge fan of his, and his book, Climbing Through Storms, is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And he talks about you quite a bit in there and in your Everest summit. And if we haven't mentioned it already, you were the first blind person to climb Mount Everest. This was, what year was that, 2000?
22 years ago, 2001.
2001.
Yeah.
I think my stepdad was actually on Everest in 2000. But that was
Brad, was he climbing it?
Yes.
Wow.
Attempted to.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. So much of that. It was one of those watershed moments. It's like a Roger Bannister moment where a blind person, no kidding. I mean, it was one of those things where he said that it's only impossible if you don't try. Yeah. And when I first went blind, there were so many things I just thought I couldn't undo any longer, or couldn't, I could wipe off the bucket list because blind people just, that's not possible. Yeah, right. But I hadn't even, there were many things I hadn't even considered. And until I learned about guys like you, Lonnie, Ivan Castro, Scott Smiley, a couple Army officers.
Of course, I know all those guys.
Yeah. All of you guys convinced me to go off and do a lot of stupid things.
Which you have, by the way. You've done some big-ass stupid things. Oh, my God, have you? When I learned about you doing Badwater, I mean, come on. I was like, that is just the most intense thing on the earth. So I don't know how you did that.
Well, I would say that was a conglomerate. That was a hybrid influence of you and trying to get in shape for climbing Mariposa, which, by the way, terrible name for a mountain, Spanish for butterfly.
Yeah, it should have been like Killer Mountain or, Tiger Mountain or
instead of Mount Tickle Feather
Crocodile. Yeah, I kayaked through this rapid in the Grand Canyon. When I kayaked the Grand Canyon, it was called Killer Fang Falls. I'm like, ooh, now that's a name that'll put some sweat down your neck. But hey, Aaron, you mentioned doing these big achievements and that I was an influence on you, and that's really beautiful. I appreciate that. But, I think that's the way it works, right? Because when I was a kid, I had these people that opened doors for me in terms of like when I thought about my possibilities. As you know, one of them comes to the summit every year, Mark Wellman. he climbed El Capitan in the 80s. He fell down a peak in the Sierra Nevadas. He became paralyzed from the waist down. And after he learned to climb again, and him and his friend Mike Corbett, they climbed El Cap. He did 7,000 pull-ups in 8 days to get to the top.
And with that pull-up, that rig that slide up and then pull up, then slide it up with a ascender type contraction.
Yeah. That's amazing. Exactly. And now that he summited, okay, that was like so mind-boggling, right? It just blew my mind as a kid. It just opened the door in my mind, like maybe for you. And now I bet you 30 paraplegics have climbed El Capitan. You know, nowadays it's like, okay, cool, another paraplegic just climbed El Capitan. Same thing with Everest. I feel like I opened the door in a certain way, but now I think there have been 3 or 4 blind people who have climbed Everest. There was a Chinese guy that did it. Lonnie Bedwell did it. And my friend Andy Holzer did it. You should interview Andy. He's a badass, by the way. He's really cool. He's an amazing climber. But anyway, so yeah, that's the way it works. This Roger Bannister thing you mentioned. Yeah, you open a door, you break through that barrier, and then a zillion people walk through it. And it's really beautiful to see that.
And that's the whole point of no barriers. It's it's not what's in front of you. It's what's inside you that counts. And a lot of times, our biggest difficulties and biggest barriers are in our own minds. Sometimes we just don't even know the possibilities out there. And that was the thing about Roger Bannister, is that once he broke the 4-minute mile, it was 4 or 5 people did it within months.
Yeah, because they knew it was possible. Yeah. So we all have those mentors. We're all building on each other's achievements and just taking it a little bit further.
So tell me a little bit about the organization and what the mission is and who you serve.
Well, so I mentioned Mark Wellman. Mark called me up after Everest, and he said, you want to be a part of a climb, making a film. It was called Beyond the Barriers. And he said, I have another teammate who wants to join us. So we're going to climb this rock face together outside of Moab. And his name is Hugh Herr. And Hugh at the time was a PhD student at MIT and getting his PhD in bioengineering. And he was a double-leg amputee, brilliant climber. He'd gotten lost in a storm, went down the wrong side of the mountain, and his legs froze, long story short. And he woke up in the hospital. They had to amputate his legs. And so over time, he wanted to get back to climbing. You know, it was the typical thing. Doctors said, you'll never climb again. But he started tinkering with these prosthetic legs and feet and different shapes and composite materials. And he started climbing at a super high level, ranked in the top 10 climbers in the country. So the 3 of us climbed this rock face together. And I was so blown away. You know, like just meeting you, for instance, you know, like you're connected in this strange way, not by your triumphs, not by your resume, but by the struggles that you've gone through. And so I felt connected with those 2 guys because I'd seen them go from this just absolutely being shattered to getting back and living fully. And I thought, okay, what is the recipe for that? Is there a recipe? Is there a way that you could teach how to go from this dark place where you're on the sidelines to living fully again? And so honestly, No Barriers began more with questions than any answers. So the 3 of us got together and we started fiddling around with this idea of No Barriers, how we teach it. It kept growing and evolving. Now we work with thousands of people. They're all people of challenge. They're not just blind people. They're people with all kinds of disabilities and challenges, from physical challenges, of course, like you and I, to amputees, to, you know, to folks who are deaf, you know, but also people with emotional challenges and mental challenges. You know, obviously veterans coming back with PTSD, PTS, just from all the stuff that they had to contend with and now lingers in the mind, sort of like a record that won't stop repeating, you know? And then we work with caregivers, folks who take care of folks with illness or injury or disability, and they never get a break. But then we added to the mix kids. You know, they don't have a physical challenge, but like kids in the foster care program, kids with economic challenges, right? We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same community of challenge. And so the point of No Barriers is come together to these events, these experiences, these expeditions, and we'll lean on each other and lift each other up, and we'll solve problems together, and we'll help each other break through the barriers that we're all trying to break through. And then maybe at the end of the process, we can figure out how to contribute back to the world in some special way that only you can do. Mm-hmm. If you're sitting on the sidelines, you're not contributing back to the world. And so I feel really proud, you know, like you coming on our veterans expedition. And maybe, again, I don't mean to be overly proud, overly egotistical or anything, but like it makes me really proud that maybe No Barriers was a bit of a catalyst for you and all the amazing things that you've done since then.
What's the thing about community, about giving back and you know, helping others, teaching others, supporting them, is that from one, we got it from somebody, right? Somebody decided to put their knowledge and their support or their empathy into us to give us the strength and the knowledge to overcome our own barriers. And it's incumbent upon us to pay that down the line. But also, it's just as fulfillment. It's actually selfish to be of service, because we become stronger, happier by teaching and supporting. And so that's where we are truly stronger together, because we all lift each other up. And
you're so right. I mean, like my Everest climb, these are 13 friends, 12 friends, actually. I was the 13th. And then we had 8 Sherpas, amazing Sherpas, and this team came together to support me to get to the top. I mean, those guys, I don't know if sacrifice is the right word, but they all like really put their lives on hold to be a part of this great adventure together. And I look at those team members who I'm friends with for life. I have that connection, that bond for life. Mm-hmm. I imagine like the way you have those connections from your time in the military. You're just going through such hard stuff together that it's really hard to have that kind of connection in the normal world. I think it's possible. It's just harder. But anyway, so I saw my team, just pour out so much love on that expedition and subsequent expeditions that I thought, it's my honor then to become that kind of person that, as you say, pays back in a way, but that maybe that's the wrong way to say it, but to somehow be a mentor for others, to be a catalyst for other people as they move forward in their lives and think about what kind of big achievements they want to have.
That reminds me of something as your team leader told you when came down from Everest. And was that Jeff Evans?
Actually, no, it's this guy named Pasquale Scatoro. He sounds like a very Italian man, but he's actually American with Italian roots. But and we call him PV for short. And he was the guy that organized my Everest expedition. He was an amazing team leader, great leader.
What he said to you? I remember, a lot of service members. They reach it's like a pinnacle of their lives with going to battle, and the camaraderie, the brotherhood, even the excitement, the adrenaline rush, which is a little bit morbid, but it's true.
Yeah,
there's nothing like the experience, good and bad, of being in battle. So when they come home, they're almost left with a void. And you went up to the top, the highest point in the world, and came down in PV. What did he tell you?
Oh my gosh. It was really funny and ironic in a way because I'd gotten down through the ice fall. The Khumbu ice fall is like a blind person's worst nightmare. You're hopping from boulder to boulder of ice. They're rolling and shifting under your feet. They're thousands of foot drops. You're zigzagging on little tiny snow bridges over these big crevasses. You're jumping over some crevasses and landing on the other side. You're walking across these ladders. The Sherpas lay 4 or 5 ladders lashed together with like this boat twine across. You got to walk across these ladders. It's just insanity. And then there's the volatility that it's moving and shifting. They say it moves about 1 meter a day, and that creates all kinds of ice fall, like big seracs that will collapse over the trail and take out the trail, or destroy those ladders. There's actually a team of Sherpas called the ice doctors that continually go through the ice fall and keep the path open. It's insane work.
Wow.
So I got through that and got down to base camp and knew I was going to live, and I'd done it, and just that euphoria, that feeling of just joy and, all those hormones that are releasing in your brain, and you're just psyched to be alive. And PV pulled me aside and he said, Erik, he said, don't let Mount Everest be the greatest thing you ever do. He said, do me a favor. Don't let Mount Everest be the greatest thing you ever do. And I thought, PV, come on, dude. That's the worst time motivational advice in the history of the world. Like, I had lost 30 pounds. I just wanted to walk on a sidewalk that didn't kill me, like just wanted to eat croissants and drink lattes. And PV's like challenging me right as I stepped off the mountain. Mm-hmm. But what he was saying was right on, Aaron, because what he was saying, like the same thing for vets, I think. I mean, at a macro level, it's the same message, right? Like he said, this experience isn't to like one and done, to put it on your resume, or to like take that trophy or that Purple Heart or whatever it is and put it on your shelf. He said the real reason we do these things is because they are a catalyst to more growth, more impact, more learning. And so what he was saying to me was, don't waste it. Take this experience and don't freaking waste it. And man, that was the best advice anyone ever gave me.
I can only imagine what would go through my mind if she was speaking to me after that. Like, okay, do you know of a bigger mountain? But it was the same thing for me. Say with Vanwater, I just began the first blind depth, for instance, to run across Death Valley and up Mount Whitney, between over 2 other mountain ranges, and as soon as like right at the finish line, I'm sitting down in the chair, they're giving me water and snacks and stuff and congratulating me, and then somebody else, okay, what's the next? I went, what do you mean what's next?
But I think that's a great thing to think about, because sometimes you reach the pinnacle of your physical success. You're not going to just keep doing harder, scarier, bolder things, because in a way, as we get older, we're getting a little more decrepit, and that's kind of like an unsustainable path to just keep thinking, how do I top myself? How do I do something harder, scarier, riskier? I think that's a dead end eventually. So I think what PV was saying, and again, I'm extrapolating, is that just move through the stages of your life and keep learning and growing at the stage of life you're at. So for me, after Everest, I wanted to add to my family. And so we went, in the middle of a civil war in Nepal, we adopted a little boy, Arjun. He just came home from college. But we brought him home at 5 years old, starting No Barriers. Just all the things that we're trying to think about, writing books, making films, just trying to enhance your life at the stage you're at, and not thinking, because like after Everest, there's nothing taller to climb. So yeah, I think we have to expand what PV was saying into like more of a, just like a more expansive viewpoint than just, okay, like what am I going to climb next?
Mm-hmm. Or what to become an expert in outside of the climbing. What other areas of your life can you become, the greatest you can be?
Yes, you got it.
I did want to kind of take it from another angle, because you recently had on your show, had a conversation with Dr. Charney about resilience. And I wanted to ask you what in your adventures, what these challenges do for you, if it helps you with your own resilience, and of course with your experiences with No Barriers, how these challenges affect the participants, the people that get to participate in the program.
Well, I think it's fun for me to go out and be physical. I just got back from this 2-day ice climbing trip. We climbed this beautiful, I don't know, might have been 600-foot vertical waterfall, frozen waterfall. And, I'm hanging out with these two nice folks, and we're hanging from the ice from a couple ice screws, and we're shivering, and we're cold. Our toes are cold. Our hands are cold. Mm-hmm. We're hungry, and but we're climbing this beautiful, preposterous wall of ice, and it's 10 degrees outside. It's a weird kind of fun, I have to say. It's a really weird kind of fun, because I do look back and I go, it's fun, but at the time you have to be able to suffer well, and I guess that's a kind of resilience. I don't think I ever feel like super strong in those instances. I feel kind of vulnerable, right? I'm like sitting there on the side of an ice face with a giant down jacket over me, thinking this jacket and these gloves, these boots are between me and like losing my hands and feet or dying out here. So I always feel kind of vulnerable. But when I come home from those experiences, it does sort of embed its way into your psyche. So that you can survive things, you can flourish in hard environments if you work hard and you prepare hard and you have a great team around you and you have a pioneering spirit, that you can persevere through hard situations. And you can and you can notice the joy and the beauty along the way. And so really, I guess that's No Barriers, right? So that's the equation that's the map that we're teaching at No Barriers. And so when you live that experience and then you come home and you teach it, it gives you a bit of maybe more credibility. Like working with vets. Aaron, I got to say, it's really intimidating working with vets. These folks who have gone out and laid their lives on the line for our country and done things that would make me pee my pants, but having done some of this stuff, like in the mountains as a blind man, it gives me this sort of instant credibility or connection to be able to, talk to people, and they go, this guy's not full of shit. He's talking from a place of credibility, I guess.
I was thinking about that when you were talking about it. The things we call fun.
Right.
And somebody asked me how my 100-mile races, or Mad Water, 135 miles. So how was it? Fun. I don't know. There's not a word. There's not a word for it, because you are almost like elated in your misery, right? in your suffering, and you're finding joy, because it's a struggle, right? And you're pushing yourself. You're way outside your comfort zone. But then when you come back to your comfort zone, the minor discomforts are very minor. So, and that was part of why we work on resilience every day.
I think so. Yeah, for sure. That's right, right on. And I wrote a chapter in my second book called The Adversity Advantage.
Mm-hmm.
This book that was trying to help people take adversity and turn it into something that's like fuel or purpose in their lives. And we wrote a chapter called Suffer Well. And when I started diving into it, I found that like every religion, every philosophy on earth, they're dealing with the same question. How do you find joy and meaning in suffering, right? Because you don't have to climb a mountain to suffer, right? You've done your fair share of suffering, right? I'm sure as you got on your feet and life became better, right? But I've lost loved ones. I lost my brother, my sister, my mom. I've had best friends die in the mountains, and so life is suffering. So I think for me, it's like, how do you continue to find purpose and beauty and joy in the world? How do you continue to have fuel in your tank, as there's a lot of suffering happening around you and in you? It's something we have to deal with just out of living.
Yeah, it's to steal metaphor from my cooking experience. Is you got to take the sweet with the bitter. It's if your life was just completely salty, so would you.
I'm starting to get saltier by the day, though.
But you gotta mix all the contrast, elements in, and we use the suffering to appreciate the times when you're low, and I believe that pain is inevitable. Pain is a guaranteed factor of life, but suffering is an option, is a decision, and we choose to suffer, like you say, suffer well, or sometimes we choose to remain in this desperate, depressed feeling. And I think part of doing these challenges, the optional suffer, the miserable fun, is the fact that when we come back and the air conditioning goes out for a while, I can say at least this was in Death Valley.
You have perspective. I think a lot of people get sidelined, right? And they have, something happens to them, or they get beat down, or, they get shoved down or shoved, just maybe they try something and it doesn't work out, and, they lose their house, and now they have fear, that they live with. And so I think people get stuck, and it's really easy to get stuck in life. And I think most people yearn to be unstuck. They just don't know how. Now, some people are just, revolving doors, and they're just always going to be stuck. And you kind of have to just say, okay, well, if you're good with it, then that's fine. But a lot of people yearn to live a life that's more meaningful, and, to reclaim their lives. They just don't know how to do it, and they need tools. They need to have a catalyst. They need to have mentors. They need to have a community around them. And so, like at No Barriers, if people take the first step and they sign up, then we try to provide that catalyst for them, and give them the tools and the mindset to say, okay, yeah, I can go through this experience and come out the other side brighter. But it's hard. And I think, I guess my point is how easy it is to get stuck for a long time. And I feel fortunate because I was stuck for a little while, but I kind of fought my way out, and you did too, and high fives, right? But it ain't easy.
And I think when it comes to that, there are also, it's almost like tides. We go through phases. Sometimes we're in this go-getter challenge phase, and sometimes we get stuck for a little while. We get into a rut, and we find our way out of it. And sometimes we kind of stay in one phase or another, but we're always moving, we're always changing and evolving, and so is the rest of the world. So you're right. Sometimes we hit these pinnacle moments, and then we come down. It is the community, it's the people you have around you that help lift you up and help share some of their mindset, their outlook, their emotions, that with you, that help get you out of that rut. So, what have you got on the horizon? What's coming up next? What are you excited about?
Well, more ice climbing this season. I'm going to try to commit myself a little more to some ice. So might go to Alaska. Going to Cody, Wyoming to climb this winter. And then I'm playing around with a bunch of ideas. There's this big face in the Bugaboos that I want to go rock climb this summer. It's a 3,000-foot face. Jeff Evans invited me to Pakistan to climb a peak. In September, I got invited to tandem mountain bike over the Andes for 30 days. Now, I don't know if I can do all of those because I might come home and my life would, have fallen apart at home. But so, yeah, I'm playing around with a bunch of adventures this winter and this spring and summer. And then, of course, no barriers. It's a non-physical goal, but it's just as important or more important than any of my silly climbs to really grow this idea. We're always struggling financially, fundraising to pull off these big events and experiences and scholarship, all the veterans and all the kids that go through our programs and our caregiver retreats. It's constant work to sustain no barriers. But I feel like it's an important thing for the world right now because there's so much division and crazy conflict and, like Congress, like they're swinging at each other and cursing at each other. And you're like, the world needs more barriers. I mean, more no barriers. We need to find more community, more connection. So people are just feeling less connected these days. I remember climbing a peak on one of our events. It was called What's Your Everest? And we have a big community that come and climb. We had this guy, Cole Rogers, who he had this disease that like fused his bones together. So he was in a wheelchair. He was only like 90 pounds. And he wasn't that mobile. Even though he taught martial arts, so he was a total badass. But we got him in this thing called a grit freedom, or excuse me, what is it called? It's called an action track. It's like a big tank with tread wheels, and you can push this joystick, and it can just power its way up this really wild terrain. And he started powering up the mountain. He was probably 300 yards from the top. And of course the action track chair ran out of batteries. And we're like, okay, Cole, we'll just put you on, you just get on my back and I'll carry you the rest of the way. He goes, no, I don't want to do that, Eric. He said, I want to do it on my own. And he got out of that chair and he started army crawling, like on his elbows and knees, crawling across the tundra. Really slowly, because it takes a huge amount of effort for him to crawl his way up a mountain at 10,000 feet. And there are about 100 of us just walking beside him. And my God, when you see that, you're like, that's what life is about, not all this other bullshit.
No, absolutely right. It's about, pride, dignity, and integrity. On the flip side of that, though, there have been so many times where I've been, embarrassed, afraid to ask for help. And, for the blind, almost everything becomes a team sport.
Yeah.
And for him, maybe it was, that boy, I want one of those chairs. That sounds so cool. But
Yeah.
it took a lot of help from others to get him that far. The inventor, the first people that set that chair up and got him, there are so many other people. That was a team effort that got him that far. But of course, we got to do.
Because do some of it, Yeah, your pride. You're totally right. And when we got to the summit all together, we just all sat there. It was like this seminal experience for all of us. We're all crying, and I thought this is no barriers, right? This is community coming together to support each other, and I know Cole is flourishing more as a result of that day.
Well, that's really the true spirit. It's what we're in it for. We're a community. We're a civilization, society. These tribes and people that lift each other up. We all have difficulties in our lives. Some of us wear it on the outside. Some of us, all of us, have our own barriers to overcome on the inside. And nobody can judge another person's difficulties or how tough it is to get through their barriers. That's their own personal battle, their own journey to go through. But what we can do is be compassionate, be empathetic. We can lend a hand when needed. We can offer it, and offer just encouragement when somebody's doing their going through that journey.
But I will say this, Aaron. I mean, I guess this is my soapbox, but I mean, my philosophy is that, when we do get stuck, sometimes we retreat down into our basement, metaphorically, and we're eating ramen noodles and we're just miserable. And nobody's going to come down into your basement and pull you out of that basement. You got to take the first step.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take the first step, So that would be my encouragement, my advice to anyone who's suffering. Take the first step. There's great organizations out there. There's people that may be great support and mentors that maybe you haven't thought it through. You know what I mean? Like, don't lose hope. Take the first step, because when you do that first step, it exponentially starts to change your life, to change the trajectory of your life. And so I hope people will do that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm totally inspired. I think I'm going to go outside and, freeze my butt off. And I mean, it's like mid-50s right now.
Nice.
But yeah, I love doing this stuff. I love putting myself in these, the sides of mountains, on these long hot roads, or jumping into some really cold water or something, and reminding myself that I'm still capable of so much. And yes, there's so much out there, so much life to be lived. We can't do that while eating ramen in our basement.
And then the physical stuff, those are beautiful things that you're talking about. But also, Aaron, you're a teacher, right? You're teaching right now with this podcast. You're teaching, you're mentoring people, and don't forget that piece as well. I know you're full on that side too.
So the physical stuff is a great way to. I mean, there's so many benefits, personal benefits to it, but it becomes a really good metaphor, an example for every other aspect of your life. And when people talk about resilience, what do they say? It's like working out a muscle, the physical side. So it's the same, for every other aspect. I'm climbing these mountains, so I can deal with some financial troubles. Or going through some kind of relationship problems, but I ran this race and felt that hopelessness, and it was with my team, my community, that helped me get through that. So I will look for my mentors and coaches and my neighbors to help me through these relationship issues, or counselors. And, I mean, there's so many different ways, and I think it's great that we stay just physically fit or are active for not just our physical conditioning health, but our mental health as well.
Yeah, it's all connected, isn't it? Yeah. What's the Patagonia? Yvon Chouinard wrote a book. He's the head of, he's the founder of Patagonia, and it's something. The book is like, to some effect, like let them go surfing or something. I know I just butchered the title.
Yeah, let my people
essentially. Yeah, he's like, because if you drive in your personal life, you're going to come back and be a better employee. You're going to be a better teammate, right? Not suppressing yourself for your job, but actually, bringing all that other stuff to the table makes you a more complete person, And so, yeah, I think that what you're talking about is amazing.
It's all connected. I've got a really good friend, Frank, who is one of the best people I know. He's an incredibly charitable guy. He's a very affluent entrepreneur, business owner. He's a terrific boss to work for, as far as I can tell. And he does the kind of things that people who run 100-mile races point to and say, that's crazy. So I think it's all connected.
Yeah.
He lives a life of challenging himself to become a better person every single day. And it affects every aspect of his life.
Yes, sir.
Well, sir, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I've enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you'd like to share with the audience?
No, just encourage people, learn about No Barriers, sign up for some of our programs, come out to some of our events. I haven't missed one yet. So,
where do they find out more?
Yeah. NoBarriersUSA.org.
Awesome.
Yeah. Check us out. Yeah. And reach out, on Instagram, all that kind of stuff. People know how to get in touch with everyone these days.
Awesome. Well, Erik, one more time. I want to thank you, not just for coming on the show, but for being a mentor, being a friend, being an example for me and so many others. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. You're the same for me, EOD fudge, EOD chocolates, man. That is outrageous. That is such a... Cooking without looking? Come on, dude. Nobody could have a better tagline in the history of the world.
Have you seen the show?
Huh? Have I seen what?
Have you seen the show?
Not yet. Is it coming?
It was a B2B joke, a blind-to-blind joke.
Oh, see. Yeah. I've seen it. Yes, of course. All right, there you go. Yeah, I get the C thing. Yeah.
Just to, backtrack from the very beginning before we started recording, and I have a couple of disclaimers about, being blind and deaf. I told you about, just enunciating so I can hear you better, or understand you better. But I also I ask people, hey, are my eyeballs screwed in straight? How's my hair? Am I even square in the camera? Do buddy check for me. And I diagnosed Lonnie that. He's like, I don't like the color of your shirt.
That shirt looks stupid from a blind guy. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's we could do a whole podcast on blind jokes. People will ask me, they'll say, have you been blind your whole life? And I'm like, not yet, but most likely.
Man, and don't even get me started on air travel. I really do thank you for coming on, and to jump in on one of your adventures one of these days soon.
Aaron, anytime, buddy, anytime. We'll have a blast. Yeah, just let's brainstorm and we'll make it happen.
All right. All right. One dirt bag adventure to another. Thanks. Yeah. Have an awesome time.
Okay. Thanks, bud.